Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration.
I finally got around to watching Dune, and I was reminded of this quote, which I just love. It's so visceral and kind of just fits into the story and the book quite neatly, but it's also so true and so applicable to the rest of our life. Fear is poison to our mind, and I'm hoping this video can be a little part of the antidote. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and on Early Owl, we learn to stop fear from controlling our life. There's a million different ways that fear can have a negative impact on your life, but in this video, I wanted to focus on how it can stop you from being your best self or stop you from doing what you want to be doing. I think the core of this type of fear comes from if it feels like you are trying to reach outside of your station. Like, let's say you're trying to do something difficult or that most people fail at, like starting a business or a YouTube channel. Or maybe you're doing something that either goes against what you feel people like you should be doing or goes against who you've been in the past. Like if you've always been on the bigger side of things and you want to start losing weight, I know it's very common to feel a lot of fear and feel like you're being judged if you start going to the gym. Why do we feel this kind of fear? It's obviously tied into some fear of social judgment. And looking back biologically, it's pretty easy to see why. When we were gathered in small groups and we were dependent on the group, social expulsion would generally mean death. So it makes sense that we have some inner barometer for how other people view us, and we're pretty scared of stepping outside of that. I also think it's something that gets ingrained into us quite heavily in our earlier years. Like if you're a teenager and you are in high school, then first of all, you might not be that sure of who you are and also probably care a decent amount about what people think. And then you get put into this environment which has a very rigid social structure. And if you do something lame or that doesn't really fit into the social mold, then that can have a pretty negative impact on your experience of high school. Now, having some of this type of fear isn't all bad either. I'm sure it's prevented some people from going in a completely stupid direction in life, or maybe stopped people from getting sucked into multi-level marketing or pyramid schemes or stuff like that. But generally, I think it's something we do have a bit too much of, and it causes quite a lot of harm. So why is this kind of fear harmful? I think one problem it can lead to is a bit of a defeatist attitude. Like we talked earlier about going to the gym and how you feel people might judge you. One of the things that can happen is that you start to believe those perceived judgments yourself. Like you might think people will think that you are just going to give up. And then if you start believing that, then you're just not going to try at all. This can also lead you to not trying as hard to improve your work in whatever way. Like you might be afraid of asking for feedback or showing your work to others, which again just makes the progress of learning and improving at something much more difficult. One other thing that can happen is that this type of fear leads you to not take your projects seriously. Like it's a pretty different thing to just tell yourself that you're going to write the book someday and then just leave it at that, versus setting up a schedule and kind of deadlines for yourself for when you want to progress with the book and the results you want to reach, and then sticking to that schedule. Because in the first version, you can kind of always protect yourself and protect your ego and protect your social status by saying that you never really tried. But if you really tried something and then you fail, then the fear around that is much bigger. I also think this type of fear is really working overtime when you are in your early adulthood. First of all, then you're generally in a period where you care quite a lot about what other people think of you and how you present yourself. Then you're also in a part of life where it's expected, or at least you feel like it's expected, that you're supposed to figure out what to do with your life. So it might feel like you're making a clear statement that if you try some new project, you're kind of saying, this is what I want to dedicate my life to. I think this is a pretty big reason why a lot of people in their late teens and early 20s don't really do that much of anything. And at least I am extremely guilty of this. And this is something I relate to a lot, where you are not sure exactly what you want to be doing and you're afraid of committing to something because then you feel like this is going to be my path now and everyone is going to think that either he succeeds at this or he fails, and then that's that. I'm going to throw in the cliche here. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. I guess it's a cliche because it's very often true. First of all, and this is kind of the biggest point that you just need to keep hammering home, is that nobody cares. Like nobody cares what you're doing with your life. Everyone is just focused on their own stuff. And whether you start a YouTube channel or you want to become an astronaut or whatever else, nobody cares. I feel very lucky that I have a few of my friends and family actually watching my videos, but I would like to believe that that is because they actually enjoy the videos and get something out of it, not because they actually care what I'm up to on YouTube or they're like want to follow my journey, even in a positive way. Like, you might have a few people who are actively supporting you, but for the most part, they have enough stuff to deal with on their own, so they don't have the time or energy to care about what you're doing at all, whether it's positive or negative. Nobody cares if you're trying and failing at writing a book. Nobody cares if you create a YouTube channel and it doesn't gain any traction or your videos are bad. Nobody cares if you're an aspiring artist who is bad at drawing. Like, they just don't care. And this only becomes increasingly true as you get older. As I mentioned earlier, high school is the type of environment where some people might care a bit about what you're doing and might kind of use it against you. But this becomes less true when you start studying in college, and even less true when you kind of enter into the work life or the adult life, and everyone is just kind of focused on doing their own thing. There's always going to be some exceptions, like bullies or mean people exist in all walks of life. But if someone makes fun of you or is giving you a hard time for just doing what you want to do, then they're the abnormal moron. And giving them any power whatsoever over what you are trying to do is just not worth it. The only way things can really go wrong here, unless you're doing something like illegal or something completely socially unacceptable, like harassing someone, is if it doesn't go anywhere. And in that case, you're still much better off having done the thing and learned from not going anywhere than you are from not trying. Trying out random things and not getting anywhere with them is so much better than not trying things at all. So you should wear your failures as a badge of honor of things you've given a shot. So what can we do about these fears? First of all, I do just want to highlight that this isn't something you just kind of overcome completely and now you never have to deal with it. It's something we all deal with every day to varying degrees. I think the most important part of getting over these fears is just kind of shining some light on them and showing how they're generally not based in like a rational risk-benefit analysis. It's more just a feeling we sit with that, oh, if I try this thing, people might think I'm weird or it might not work out. Whereas at the end of the day, those things don't really matter and don't really impact anything. So you just need to sit down and figure out what you want to do with your life. And the fears should be like a secondary consideration or not really a consideration at all. And then when you figure it out what you want to do, there basically ain't nothing to it but to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, and some people might have pathological issues when it comes to fears like this and should seek professional help. But I think for most people and most situations, there is some progress to be made just by realizing how these fears are doing a lot more harm than good. It's also not something you need to commit to doing publicly or anything like that. Like, if you wanted to start a YouTube channel, then maybe an easier first step is just making a video for yourself and then making a video for your friend, instead of feeling like you need to take the plunge right away. I think what you will almost always find when you start doing these things that you are afraid of doing, that there is nothing to be afraid of. Hopefully this video helped calm some of your fears. I will find some video that is relevant and link it here. I'm not sure which one yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.